This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information, cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journey, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our topics on this episode will include diversity in the cybersecurity, how to attract a more diverse workforce, how does or can technology play a part in this, and opening up job opportunities within a dry recruitment market. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Helen Gidney, Head of Architecture Services at Softcat. Helen leads a diverse group of architects and pre-sales members, driving them all to support their customers and also achieve their own high levels of career successes. Helen is also the host of her own very successful podcast, Explain IT. Helen, welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi both. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here today.
So Helen, we typically always start with the same question with all our guests. What's brought you here today and what are you looking to achieve from this?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. So for me, I'm really passionate about diversity in technology, particularly getting more women into technology. When I started my career at Softcat, I was the only woman on the team. And I'm really pleased to have seen that grow. We now have a team of roughly 80 with about 20% women. So we're getting there. It's really improving, which is great. So I really just want to be here to show others the opportunities that are available. It's great to now be in a position where I can be a role model for others. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And also build on the work that my role models have had in the past on me and keep boosting that diversity.
Indeed. And I suppose we typically always start things off with asking our guests to share something with us that they may be particularly proud of or indeed excited about that isn't typically to be found on their LinkedIn profile.
And I think this one might be a little bit of a cheat because I don't think it is on LinkedIn, but it is a professional achievement. So I'm really honoured that I've actually been shortlisted for the CRN Women and Diversity in Channel Awards this year. So, super pleased and really humbled to be recognised. There was loads of amazing women and diverse talent on that list. And I know it was tough work to narrow it down. They said they had over 1,000 entries this year. So I'm so honoured to have been recognised. It's amazing.
Rightly so. Well, congratulations on the nomination and good luck with that.
I'd say keep your fingers crossed for me.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So, what would you say is the one challenge that you faced in your career that significantly influenced your perspective on tech or cybersecurity, for example?
Yeah, I think that's always something that women or people in slightly more minority positions do face, whether it's massively overtly or sometimes unconsciously. And I think a lot of it comes down to just small elements of bias. I've been very fortunate that Softcat have been really supportive and really encouraging of my career and my development. So I've not had pieces of bias, but there are little bits that you often see day to day where, as a woman, I feel I have to over-explain myself, or I've had instances where I'm the only woman in a room full of men trying to hold my own and show that I do have that skill, I do have that experience and do have that knowledge. And sometimes it is treated a little differently, that you're not expected to have that knowledge. So it can be tougher, much tougher to hold your own in those situations, explain in those situations, and it can feel a lot more effort and work, which has really led on to me being really passionate about that diversity. I saw it myself. I've seen it in others that I brought into my teams and in the company. So I really want to help challenge and change that and get more women, more diversity, so there isn't as much of that unconscious bias or overt bias when women are in technology positions.
Yeah, I mean, we know that increasing diversity within tech and the cyberspace is definitely a multifaceted challenge that requires kind of strategic and sustained efforts across all levels of the industry. I mean, how do we go about increasing diversity within the tech and cyberspace? And maybe how could we leverage technology to increase diversity, using, for example, AI-powered recruiting tools?
No, 100%, because it is tough. And you see that the rate of women into technology drops off pre-university, pre-college, typically in high school, and that appetite and interest into more STEM subjects, technology subjects drops off massively. So you really have to start looking back at the beginning. How do we increase and encourage women to step into more technical subjects as you go through that? But I think it's also about looking at the women that are in the industry right now, or even adjacent to the industry, because we may say that there's a very small amount of women in these roles right now, simply due to that flow from school through college and university. There's not a huge amount of diversity, gender diversity in the market right now. So then how do we look at those adjacent industries or those areas where there's really good transferable skills? We've seen a lot of people at Softcat and at other companies I've worked with, where you see people that have brought across great project management skills or organizational skills or problem solving skills, especially in technical roles. Problem solving is a key one. So what other industries, jobs have those skills that you could bring across? And the key thing I say to a lot of my new starts and in my company, regardless of who I'm talking to, is we can teach tech. Technology can be taught, whether it is cybersecurity, cloud, AI, whatever it is in there, you can teach that. The soft skills are much harder to build. So where can people bring those project management skills, problem solving skills? Communication skills is another big one. So where can we see those in other industries or adjacent industries and encourage women to step into slightly more technical roles and give them the robust training to get their technical skill built up? And I think you made a really good point there, Jay, about AI. And I kind of see using AI in two ways to improve the diversity of the industry. So you've got the first way, looking into using AI in your hiring processes. So much of the hiring process can have unconscious bias in, because talking about before, and women sometimes find that a larger hurdle to jump over than perhaps men do. There's the age-old stat of women see job descriptions and feel like they need to have around 90% of the skill set to apply, where men may look at something and say, well, I only need 40 to 50%. So that hurdle can feel much higher for those women. So how do we utilize AI to make more gender neutral job descriptions, taking out the masculine or the feminine language and making it more gender neutral? How can we use AI in our CVs that are sent into companies so hiring managers aren't seeing gender markers for individuals and hiring purely on skills? So there's all sorts of things that can be done there before people even get into the door. Something really interesting I read while I was looking into some information for the podcast is that data collected has showed that in certain industries and in certain places, there's unconscious things like relocation. Women are less likely to take a job if a relocation is during term time, because of childcare and things like that. Things that sometimes just don't get thought of. So using AI to crunch that data and see the trends can change the way that you put your jobs out there and the information that is given before people even start. And then you've got the other side of AI in the job roles. And I think this applies really well to cybersecurity, because AI can be built into so many security tools. I was talking to Microsoft a couple of months ago, and they're building AI into their managed SIEM tools, into Managed Sentinel. And they're using that to speed up the discovery of the problem for their analysts. So any analysts that are then using Managed SIEM products are able to find the problems much quicker using natural language, rather than needing to know every step of the tooling, the technology, the coding. It simplifies that process much quicker. Not only do you get an answer much quicker, but you can diversify your workforce because you're not relying on really set. And then you can build up the other skills that you do need to be an analyst, which increases that diversity, bringing those adjacent jobs, people in those adjacent jobs to the tech industry into tech. So I think there's some really good ways that can be used.
Certainly lower the barriers of entry for those less skilled. I've seen certain platforms and tools that contextualize the code, so you're learning that on the job. But of course, you do need that experienced hunter to help and guide you in that respect. Hopefully, I can mature to that level in the coming months or years even. But I think we're still somewhat away from that at this point in time.
Absolutely. It has to be a collaborative piece, right? It is, as one of my colleagues said, it's co-pilot, not pilot. So it needs to be something that supports the individual. It doesn't do the job for them. So it has to be a combination of, as you said, using AI to lower the barrier of entry into a role, but then a really robust and supportive system of mentors and training for those individuals when they're in the role so that they can build those skills or even come with some of those transferable skills, and you build up the other technical knowledge that you need on the job with those mentors and with those programs.
I guess in terms of sort of honing and cultivating talent from outside the stereotypical sectors and the usual background experience, just to sort of build on that. And of course, as you mentioned, attracting more women into the tech sector in general. And clearly, as we touched on earlier, we need to address sort of educational outreach and recruitment practices and workplace culture. But I guess that broader societal perception as well is important, right?
100%. And I think some of that does come back to that right at the beginning of your lives and your educational careers, and then beyond into your careers. How do you make STEM subjects, technology subjects more attractive, less gender biased, which is a much bigger challenge than I can solve, absolutely. But collectively, if we can all work into that, working with schools, we are starting to look at Softcat at going into schools and doing cyber threat simulations for school children to show them the excitement and the interest of hunt the flag type technologies where they can actually feel like they've achieved something. I think this could be really interesting to do as a job going into more of those analyst type roles or pre-sales roles or engineer roles. So absolutely bits there. And then I think there's the other point of honing and cultivating talent in those adjacent roles, in those adjacent industries, And that comes from looking to recruit in perhaps uncommon places. There are a lot of women that have taken time out from technical roles where they've had children or needed time off for personal reasons or family reasons. Could we use mums' websites to see those women that want to get back into the industry but feel that barrier is really high or really intimidating, and sort of bring the opportunities to them and really taking that talent and experience they've already got and just give them the space and the encouragement to get back into the workforce if that's what they're interested in.
That's an interesting point. It's something that I've actually helped a partner leverage in the past. They had a few remotely based positions that were only around about sort of 25 to 30 hours a week, and we were looking to attract underrepresented groups. And we utilised an app called Peanut, which my partners used in the past. And there are communities on there of untapped talent that perhaps have got those transferable skills. More importantly, those that perhaps have got a deep industry understanding and understanding of particular businesses, not necessarily a technical standpoint, but from a people process standpoint, and the ability to go into these organizations, build relationships and influence somewhere where perhaps these technical focused individuals are sort of falling short at one time.
And I think the other thing we, Warren, have come across a bit more in our discussions is a return to the almost sort of long ago world of the part-time role, which, seems to have sort of lost its place really over maybe the last sort of decade or so. And I think certainly in terms of talking about parents and obviously, family life and so forth, there's definitely a good call for businesses to start adopting, skilled workers back in a part-time capacity and sort of factoring that into the teams.
Definitely. And another one I've seen in other companies, and I think is an interest for me going forward, recruiting into my team and into other teams at Softcat, is job sharing as well. A lot of the technical roles, there is absolutely the ability to share jobs to part-time, to flexible work because of the nature of the work. You are not tied to one customer or one account. It can be flexible and transient, which allows your role to be flexible and transient. So absolutely, I think more of that would really drive an increase in diversity. And then ultimately, an increase in diversity increases your diverse thoughts in your teams, your industry, which ultimately we've seen time and time again from data and reporting that like McKinsey and people like that have done. It makes companies more successful. So if you can start at that level of giving more opportunity and more flexibility to women, you can then ultimately make more for your businesses, which is really where we want to go.
And we partner with a lot of organisations, and we help them develop our EVP, so their employee value proposition. Part of that is aligning around the special interest groups and ensuring that the business has perhaps internal champions that can help align the business goals with sort of socially equal outcome. But we do see a lot of organisations, and I think I put an article out last week, focusing on policies and procedures internally and metrics, some of which unfortunately have gone sort of too far right in terms of that data collection and trying to look at KPIs when it comes to diversity. So how would you suggest organisations can perhaps balance that out? Where are we seeing success from your peers within their diverse landscape, for instance?
Yeah, and that is a fine balance. I think people get data fatigue as well. You can see a lot of people don't want to fill in the forms on how they're doing if they're every month or responding to the information if it's too regular. We've been really successful with our communities at Softcat, like you were saying, about having champions in certain special interest, key interest groups. And I think that's helped us quite a lot understand, without asking or pushing on people the need for that data, people naturally gravitate towards where they feel comfortable and safe and supported. It's allowed us to look at those communities and say, this is the information we have. They can feed back to the company and help us with improvements and changes to make things better for those special interest groups. So I think that's really helped there. And then it is just a balance of those forms and feedback links. How much is too much? And trying to find that balance. I don't think there's a one size fits all for that. I think you have to figure out how that is for each company and your culture and the information that you get from people.
Dating.
That's brilliant. And in terms of organisation that perhaps are starting that journey, looking to enhance diversity throughout the business, and they're going for a cultural as well as a technological shift. What diversity goals do you think they should have as a baseline? Much similar to sort of baseline level cyber hygiene.
I would actually say I think a baseline is a really tough one. I'm almost against a set baseline. I think it has to be something flexible and moving with your business, because if you set yourself a hard and fast target, as we've talked about with the drier market, with the niche, more niche skill sets needed in cybersecurity, with the lack of diversity coming through from schools, you can hamstring yourself on trying to hit a target that might be unachievable simply because the people, the diversity, the culture, the right fits aren't there. And you should never sacrifice finding somebody who works for your business just to get more diversity. But there is a balance. And this was where we're talking about where can you look for more transferable skills. And I think something that you can do instead of maybe a set baseline is say, well, where are we taking these jobs, these needs for our business, these key skills and key values that we need to build, and what do we need on day one? What do we need in 3 months? What do we need in 6 months? What could we help teach people? And it just opens up that pool of accessible talent that you can get into your business. Your soft baseline then might be much easier to apply because you've opened your pool of talent, of your individuals that you can hire, because you've been more flexible with what you need on day one, which then allows you to kind of achieve more of that diversity.
On that sort of as a final thought, I think the ability to perhaps identify talent elsewhere within a business or redeploy it, matching it with a training provider that can help you upskill the individuals internally, is certainly something that businesses shouldn't sort of turn away from, especially when it comes to saving the cost of recruitment activities, for instance.
Absolutely. That's such a good idea because they already know your business, they already know your culture, they already understand what makes you tick. And like we'd said, you can teach the technology. So if you can get those training providers working with you externally or internally, then it's a road to success.
Yeah, David. So we know sort of opening up opportunities in a dry recruitment market, especially in the tech and cybersecurity space as it's been of late. requires a kind of creative and strategic approach to attract and retain talent. And how do you feel we should go about dealing with this, in your opinion? How do we open up these opportunities within the market when it's a little less bullish than we know it can be?
Yeah. And I think it's those key points that we've already mentioned. So how do you make your job descriptions more accessible, removing any kind of unconscious bias in those? How do you recruit in more uncommon spaces that you might not have thought of? Find that talent that's got the soft skills and the transferable skills that could align really nicely to your business, and then you can teach them the technology. So that's absolutely where I would start.
So I think one of the things we tend to come towards the back end of the podcast with a few quick fire questions is, obviously you've had a pretty interesting career, Helen, and you've built and led diverse teams and driven that innovation that's enabled the transformation and the growth, and you've led the strategy and the direction of what is award-winning solutions design functions, and worked with partners solving the business challenges through technology, and in tough market conditions you've clearly excelled. What would you say is one of the key skills or mindset shifts, if you will, that's been crucial for your success? And I guess also in terms of sort of security, technology and business leaders, do you have any other advice for them?
I think the biggest mindset shift for me was confidence. And I think you will hear women say this a lot, especially stepping into an industry that you don't see many people who look like you. I came from a non-technical background as well. So there's that extra level of, I've got some really good transferable skills. How do I build my technical expertise and be seen as a subject matter expert in those rooms? And over my career, as I've been promoted and developed and now managing multiple teams, I've had to take that shift that my role is not to know everything. There is a confidence in not knowing and asking the silly questions or asking things that other people may not ask, and being really confident that your role in those rooms, your role in those teams is about leading and driving. It's not about knowing everything and the confidence to not know everything. So I think that has taken a real mindset shift. But I also think that has helped me grow. I've been able to let go. I've been able to delegate really effectively and grow that really successful team, which has also given me the opportunity to step into bigger things. For example, hosting the podcast has been amazing. Doing on-stage presentations in the past, things like that it's really given me the space to have the confidence to do so.
And we know sort of effective communication is always key, and certainly within the C-suite, it's a vitally important thing. And one thing we've been asking all of our guests is we all often use analogies, the classic sort of castle, moat, car brakes, which may explain risk and security, for example. But what's your go-to analogy for simplifying technical concepts? And also, do you have a favorite analogy in general?
One I've used for a long time, once I'd stepped into a subject matter expert role, talking to customers and seniors, and also as I developed my career teaching others, is the supermarket checkouts, and using your juxtaposition of number of checkouts versus number of individuals against things like virtualization. Same amount of technology, but you've got double the speed, and splitting it across multiple checkouts. You're threading in your CPUs, multiple checkouts, one person splitting between the two. I find it's something that everyone does. Everyone needs to go to the supermarket at some point to get their shopping. So it plays really well and translates across all different levels.
That's brilliant. It's a brilliant example.
I mean, look, Helen, we've certainly covered some fascinating topics today, and you listened to some of the challenges you've faced and some of the strategies you've utilised to overcome them. What does the future hold for you, and also, to Softcat?
Yes, so I'm very fortunate that I have developed a lot in my time at Softcat, and I really hope to continue that. They've really championed my success. So long term, absolutely a directorship. I think great to see more women in leadership positions, senior leadership positions in the technical space. There's some brilliant ones out there, but let's get more. And then Softcat in general, we are just hoping to continue our up and up. We've been very successful for the past 25 plus years, and fingers crossed, long may that continue with the hard work and effort of our services divisions, our sales divisions all pulling together.
Amazing.
That's brilliant.
So look, we certainly highly recommend that our listeners check out the Explain IT podcast, where you can hear a lot more from Helen. And for all our listeners who want to stay connected beyond the secure Cyber Connect community platform and, of course, the Explain IT podcast, where else can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just Helen Gidney. I also have my email address on both my work and it goes on Explain It podcast as well. So helengi@softcat.com. And if you're interested in hearing a little bit more of my voice, but talking a little bit more into the technical space, Explain It is around talking tech in simple jargon-free language. And every month we take on a different topic and break it down into the key elements to help everybody understand a little bit more about tech and how it can apply to the industry and to companies. So that can be found on softcat.com and wherever you get your preferred podcast, it is also on there.
Fantastic. I'd like to thank you, Helen, the community, and all our listeners. We trust you found value in today's session. Continue the discussion, and for more sustained engagement, we invite you to join the Secure Cyber Connect community, where we're going to be offering a range of collaborative solutions for both technology and security professionals at no cost. These may include expansive community access, cross-sector mutual mentoring programs, weekly online networking sessions, and a range of exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and masterclasses. To learn more and gain access to the Secure Cyber Connect community and our initiatives, please visit allthews.secure-recruitment.com/cyber-connect/. Thank you.